Imagine that fear no longer has power over you, that no doubt seeps into your mind, that you walk into a room and the world responds to your presence before you even say a word. This is not magic or genetics. This is a system. Today, I will show you how Jim Rohn built confidence that withstands the worst storms. Stay until the end. Practical steps await you there. I used to think that confidence was a talent, that some people were born with it and others just learned to live without it. But I was wrong. Confidence is not a gift. It's a construction, brick by brick, day by day. And more often than not, it's born not under bright spotlights and applause, but when you're sitting alone on the floor of your room, not knowing how you'll pay next month's rent. I was 25. I was in debt, disillusioned, and directionless. I didn't just doubt myself. I had already convinced myself that my journey was over before it even really began. I worked every day, came home exhausted, but inside, all I felt was emptiness. And that's when a man named Earl Schaff came into my life. He didn't tell me I was special. He didn't pat me on the head. He didn't make promises. He said, if you want to change your life, change yourself. All your results are a reflection of who you've become. From that evening on, I began to realize that the problem wasn't the circumstances, not the government, not my boss, not where I was born. The problem was me. But you know what? The solution was also me. And that became my key. Because if the root of my fears is within me, then confidence can also be found within me, not externally, not through recognition, but from the inside out. Let me ask you one question. What does the confident version of you look like? Picture that person. How do they walk? How do they respond when someone doubts their words? How do they act when fear sets in? Because I'll tell you, you can already be that person, but only if you start acting not from a place of fear, but from a place of strength. In this video, I'll share with you the system that helped me build confidence that didn't waver even when everything around me was falling apart. This system wasn't born in theory, but in practice. It's not about affirmations or fake it till you make it. It's about becoming real, whole from within, even when there's still a storm outside. Because here's the truth, all great things are scary. All big changes begin with trembling hands, but if you have inner support, you won't fall. And today, I'll show you how to build it. This won't be an easy walk, but it will be a path worth taking, a path to yourself, to that version of you who no longer lives in fear, who no longer stops because someone doubts them, who no longer waits for approval because they know who they are. And if you stay till the end, I'll give you concrete actions, ones you can start today, not next week, not when you have time, but today, right now, because strength isn't about being ready. Strength is about starting, even when it's still scary. And that's exactly when confidence appears. Not instantly, but gradually and permanently. The first foundation, take full responsibility for your life. It all doesn't start with strength, not with determination, not with a loud declaration to the world, I can do it. It starts with a much quieter but far more important step, realizing that you alone are responsible for everything in your life. Everything. Not partly. Not half my fault, half theirs. Entirely. And it's in that silence that true strength is born. I remember the evening when my mentor, Mr. Schaff, asked me, Jim, how long have you been working at this job? I replied, 6 years. He looked at me intently, silently, and then said, then tell me, why do you still only have coins in your pocket and nothing in the bank? I looked away. I answered honestly, well, that's all the company pays me. And then he said something that turned my world upside down. That's not all the company pays. That's all it pays you. Oof! That hurt, but in that pain was the truth. And it's the truth that gives a person a new foundation. Because look, as long as you blame others, you are not in control of your life. You're a victim. And a victim will never be confident. There's no such thing as a person with their head held high who is at the same time blaming everyone around them. When I first heard this idea, my ego resisted, but I work hard, I'm trying. But effort is not a guarantee of results. And that's when I first heard another phrase that later became one of my favorites. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because if you grow as a person, your job, your relationships, your influence, your finances, all of that will grow with you, not instantly, but inevitably. Think about it. Have you ever seen a person who complains about the same situation for years, about their boss, the economy, their spouse, their coworkers? They're exhausted, irritated, drained, and completely lacking confidence. because they live in a world where everyone owes them and they're just a spectator. Now imagine a different picture, a person who takes full responsibility, who doesn't look for someone to blame, but asks, what can I change? They lose sometimes, but they don't complain, they learn, they analyze, they grow, and every move they make comes from a place of power. That is confidence, not loud, not showy, but internal, unshakable. I often said at my seminars, don't try to change the weather, don't change the soil, don't blame the sun or the rain, change yourself and everything else will change with you. And you know what? People who truly start to change themselves quickly feel the world around them shift. Not because the world got better, but because they became different, stronger, more resilient, calmer. Do you want unshakable confidence? I'd start with something simple yet hard. Stop blaming, say, this is my responsibility and that's why I can change it. That is the beginning of true transformation. And it only gets more interesting from here, because the next foundation has to do with your inner world, what happens in your mind every single day. And I'll show you how to train it so that fear and doubt no longer stand a chance. But that's the next step. The second foundation, work on your inner world. Daily, I often said, is there a guard standing at your door? No? Then don't be surprised that your mind is a mess. The mind is the gateway to your life. And if you don't filter what enters it, don't be shocked when confidence, determination, and even self-belief begin to crumble from within. Here's the paradox. We live in a world where we care about locks on our doors, but we let toxic thoughts into our soul without the slightest resistance. And that's the most dangerous crime, a crime against yourself. You can appear strong, confident, even charismatic, but if inside your mind is fed every morning with fear, doubt, news, complaints, and drama, how long can you really last? The inner world is like a garden, and each day you're either watering confidence or fertilizing anxiety. I remember mornings when I had no idea where I was headed. You wake up and immediately it's the phone, the news, the calls, someone already demanding, someone already disappointed, and I'd start the day reacting, not with awareness, but with inner chaos. And then my mentor told me, don't start the day until you finished it on paper. From that day on, I started waking up earlier, not because I'm a morning person, but because my mind is my future. And if I don't train it, the world will. And the world trains people to be tired, scattered, anxious, and disappointed. I started with something simple, 15 minutes of silence to give myself space to think, 5 pages of a good book to nourish my mind, and one short question to myself, what today depends entirely on me? These habits didn't make me a millionaire in a week, but they did something far more valuable. They created the inner space where confidence could be born. Because when there's chaos outside, but order inside, you win. When the whole world is panicking and you're quietly planning, you're already ahead. Think about the most influential people. They're not necessarily the loudest, they're not the most emotional, but when they speak, everyone listens. Why? Because inner clarity is always felt. It can't be faked. It's heard in the silence, in the gaze, in how a person sits, stands, breathes. And that clarity is not a gift from above. It's the result of daily inner hygiene. So what does this mean for you? Until you become the chief editor of your own thinking, the world will write your story for you. Until you choose what enters your mind, others will choose it for you. Until you consciously feed yourself strength, you'll be fed fear. And most importantly, this doesn't take hours. It's not difficult. It's not just for the chosen. 5 pages of wisdom, 10 minutes of silence, 1 mindful question in the morning, 3 things you're grateful for before bed. These are small actions, but they're what build a great person. So my friend, let me tell you this. You may not know how to overcome all your fears at once, but you can start with silence, with a book, with turning down the noise and returning to yourself. Because only when the mind is quiet, the heart is at peace, and thoughts are in order, only then can confidence be born. The kind that doesn't depend on circumstances. And in the next step, I'll show you how that confidence turns into action. Because inner clarity is great, but it's action that makes it permanent. The third foundation, action as a source of confidence, even in fear. When I was young, I believed that you had to gain confidence first and only then take action. As if once I became braver, stronger, smarter, then I'd be ready to get on stage, start a business, or change my life. But over time, I discovered a very simple yet powerful truth. Confidence is not the cause of action, but its result. In other words, you don't act because you're confident. You become confident because you act, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. Imagine someone who has never spoken in public. They're trembling, doubting themselves, running through every possible failure in their mind, and yet they step onto the stage. Maybe their voice shakes a bit. Maybe the words aren't perfect, but they did it. And you know what is born from that first step? Confidence. Small, fragile, but real. And with every next speech it grows, because every action is proof. I can. And when proof appears, doubt begins to lose its power. I often use this image. Confidence is a muscle. You're not born with it fully developed. You train it. And every time you act, even in doubt, even in fear, you lift the weight. And over time, what once seemed heavy becomes light. You know what my first public speech was like? I spoke in front of 15 people, in a room where the chair creaked louder than I did. I wasn't confident, but I showed up. And that evening changed my life forever. Not because it was a masterpiece, but because I took the first step instead of waiting until I was ready. And here lies one of the most dangerous myths, the myth of readiness. Many people wait, plan, prepare, but the longer they prepare, the deeper their doubt grows. Because thought without action becomes fear, and action without perfection builds strength. I used to say, don't wait for the perfect moment, it won't come. Create the moment through your actions. Now think about all the things you're still avoiding. They seem like giants, but if you approach them, most turn out to be shadows, not reality, just a projection of fear. A young man once told me, I want to start a business, but I'm afraid of failure. I replied, all right, then start with one phone call. Don't open a company, just call a client. You'll see that the world doesn't collapse. And he did. And what happened? He didn't become a millionaire the next day. But he stopped being afraid to make calls, and that was already a revolution. That's why the third foundation isn't about reading more, thinking deeper, or preparing longer. It's about action, small but decisive. Action that tells your fears, I hear you, but I'm moving forward anyway. Because only through action do we prove to ourselves that we can. And once we prove it, nothing can stop us. That's the beginning of unshakable confidence, when you realize that fear doesn't go away. But you've learned to move while holding its hand, and then fear no longer leads. It becomes just a witness to your growth. Now listen closely. In the next part, I'll give you a practical system that you can apply today to take your first steps toward a kind of confidence that isn't built on motivation, but on proof, on action, on results, on you, the real you. The fourth foundation, learn the art of inner indifference. I always repeated one simple thing, don't let small things steal the big ones from you. But what are small things? It's not just minor tasks. It's any thought, emotion, comment, or event that doesn't have the power to change your life, yet can still knock you off balance. And here we arrive at the fourth foundation of unshakable confidence, inner indifference to the noise around you. No, I don't mean being cold or callous. This isn't about being heartless. It's about control, about mastery over your inner state, about choosing who and what you allow to influence your mind and mood. Think about it logically. If someone can ruin your entire day with a single message, who's really in control of your life? If one comment on social media makes you doubt your worth, where's your inner strength then? I often said, a person with deep roots isn't shaken by a gust of wind. Confidence isn't when everyone supports you. It's when even in silence, even in criticism, even in others' doubts, you remain yourself. And to make that possible, you need to train the art of indifference. Not indifference to life, indifference to what doesn't build you. I remember a story. I was once speaking to a large audience, a few thousand people. And right in the middle of my talk, a man in the front row fell asleep. He was sitting there, head bowed, and dozed off. I saw it. Naturally, part of me immediately wanted to snap. Seriously? I'm here, Rohn, sharing ideas that could change lives. But instead, I smiled and told myself, maybe he needs sleep more than motivation. And I kept speaking to the others, to those who were open, because there's no point in wasting energy on someone not ready to receive it. That's the art of inner indifference, refusing to fight battles that aren't worth the effort. Is it always easy? No. Can it be trained? Absolutely. I say, not every battle deserves your attention. Not every sound deserves your reaction. Not every thought deserves your anxious heart. In a world where a new reason to worry pops up every minute, confidence belongs not to the person who does it all, but to the one who's learned to filter. Filter what to read, filter who to listen to, filter what to respond to, and most importantly, filter what to let into your heart. That's true power, remaining calm in the storm. Because storms will come, people will talk, criticize, doubt. So what? That's their noise, not your music. Imagine yourself as a deep lake. A wave ripples across the surface, but at the bottom there's calm. Because depth brings stability, and that depth is born from daily training and indifference to the unnecessary. So here's a question for you. Do you have an inner space the world can't touch? A place where you are not reaction, but silence? Not anxiety, but direction. Because only when you create that space, when you stop clinging to every outside trigger, can you act not from emotion, but from vision. Not from pain, but from principle. Not from a desire to be liked, but from the clarity of knowing who you are. And then your confidence won't come from applause. It will come from self-respect. The next part is practical. The fifth foundation, build habits that strengthen, not drain you. I once said, success is not something you achieve, it's who you become. And how do you become that person? Not through one heroic act, not through a breakthrough or a moment of clarity, but through habits. Your daily habits are small voices that whisper to your mind each day, you're growing or giving up. You're building or breaking down. You're moving or standing still. And here's the harsh truth. There's no such thing as neutral habits. Everything you do regularly either strengthens your confidence or eats away at it like rust. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you consciously reviewed your morning rituals? What do you do in the first 30 minutes after waking up? What enters your mind before the world even switches on? Because here's what I'll tell you. The first hour of your day sets the tone for your whole life. I wasn't always a morning person. But one day I decided, instead of starting the day with chaos, I'll start it with order. And I built a simple structure, a few moments of silence, reading a few pages of a wise book, writing down my goals, and asking myself, who am I today? Not what do I have to do, but who do I choose to be? Because action is born from identity, and habits are the bridges between who you were and who you want to become. Successful people don't have magical self-discipline. They just automated the right things. They built a system where they don't have to fight with themselves every day because the decisions are already made. Now think about what happens when you live in the reverse rhythm. Phones first thing after waking, breakfast on the run, or not at all, plans that exist only in your head, meetings with people who drain rather than energize, evenings without reflection on what the day even meant. And then you wonder why there's no confidence, because confidence doesn't appear in a vacuum. It's born where there is structure, where you're not just getting through the day, but shaping it, day after day. And with each repetition, your brain gets the message, I'm a person with direction, I'm someone who keeps promises to myself. That's why I emphasize this so strongly. Your identity is built on your habits. Your behavior isn't just a set of actions, it's a reflection of your I am. And you're either reinforcing that identity or letting the world decide who you'll be. Friend, let me say it plainly. Confidence is when your day works for you, not when you fight through it. It's when you have rituals that remind you every morning who you are. It's when your evenings include gratitude, not just escaping into screens. True strength doesn't come from explosive change. It comes from repetition, from consistency, from quiet persistence, from choosing yourself day after day. We've already come a long way, and in the next section, I'll give you the chance to look inward. Because it all begins with awareness, and you'll be the one to finish it through action, through choice, through new habits that won't just make you stronger but stable, unshakable. The sixth foundation, visualize yourself as strong until you become it. I often said, first you see it in your mind, then you see it in your life. Because life always follows imagination. Imagination is the blueprint. And if you don't create your own internal model of a confident self, the world around you will create a weak one for you. Why is this so important? Because people don't act according to what is, they act according to who they believe they are. Picture this. Two people receive the same opportunity to speak on stage, to start a business, to ask someone out. One sees themselves as a leader, the other as a small person who just got lucky. Who will take the first step? Who will endure failure? Who won't break? The difference isn't in skills, not in experience, but in self-image. I remember when I used to fear the stage. Before my first big speech, I couldn't sleep. My heart was racing, palms sweaty. One thought kept looping: what if I look ridiculous? Then I did what I later advised thousands of people to do. I closed my eyes and saw myself after the speech, standing tall, the room applauding. I was calm, composed, inspired. I wasn't just daydreaming, I was training my mind for who I wanted to become. And you know what? That night, I didn't lose the fear, but I gained an image. And when I stepped on stage the next morning, I wasn't the same doubtful guy anymore. I was the version I showed myself the night before. Friend, we don't build confidence through logic. We build it through inner cinema, because the brain doesn't know the difference between imagined and real. If you see yourself strong every day, your behavior starts aligning with that image. So now ask yourself, what version of you do you see every day? The one who hesitates, or the one who acts, the one who seeks approval, or the one who knows their worth? I often told the story of a young man who wanted to become a speaker, but every time he tried to speak, he froze. I asked him, "You read a lot, that's great, but what do you see when you picture yourself on stage?" He blushed. "I see everyone laughing at me." There's your answer. He was rehearsing fear instead of confidence, so I gave him a task. Before every practice, visualize the audience listening with respect. Visualize speaking calmly, holding pauses, being heard. A few weeks later, his tone changed. His posture changed. His eyes changed. Why? Because the internal picture had changed, and behavior followed. That's the heart of the sixth foundation. Don't wait for reality to change before seeing yourself as strong. See yourself as strong, and reality will begin to catch up. This isn't delusion, it's self-formation. You're creating a mental path for your mind and body to follow. And the more you repeat that image, the faster it becomes yours. Confidence isn't when everything is perfect. Confidence is having a direction in your mind and walking it despite the noise, despite fear, despite delays. Now think, what new vision of yourself do you want to start training today? Not in a year, not when the time is right, today, right now. Because only when you see yourself as strong every day, the world will begin to treat you differently. The seventh foundation: surround yourself with an environment that fuels confidence. I once said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And ever since, I've often been asked, Jim, what if all I'm surrounded by is complaints, doubts, and pessimism? My answer has always been simple: change your environment or it will change you. Because no matter what you believe, you're not made of steel. None of us are. Even the most confident people aren't immune. We are all constantly influenced. And if you want to build real confidence, you can't ignore the people around you. Think about how you feel after talking to someone who constantly complains, who lives in fear, who doubts everything, starting with themselves and ending with the weather. You might not say a word in return, but when you leave that interaction, you feel drained, discouraged, and oddly hopeless. Sound familiar? Now remember a conversation with someone who believes in themselves. Someone who listens, not interrupts. Someone who doesn't laugh at your dreams, but nudges them forward. After that kind of encounter, you walk taller, you think bolder, you feel braver. That's why your environment isn't background noise. It's either fuel or poison. I went through this myself. Early in my journey, I didn't have a circle of success. I hung out with people who dreamed of better jobs, but mocked anyone who actually took action. I remember how, after every evening with them, I'd start doubting, maybe I am overestimating myself. Until one day, my mentor told me, Jim, if you want to fly, stop hanging around with those who dig holes their whole life. It doesn't mean you have to devalue or turn away from everyone, but it does mean being intentional about who you allow to shape your beliefs. Because some people ignite your fire, and others always carry a bucket of water. And today, it's not just about who you're with physically. In the 21st century, environment also means content. What do you listen to? What do you read? What channel do you turn on when you feel down? Because all of it is your environment. And if you're constantly absorbing voices that say, this isn't for you, don't take risks, people never change, life is a struggle, then don't be surprised when your confidence is constantly on edge. Now flip that. If you tune into voices saying, "You've got this, be better, learn, act, grow," then even on the toughest days, you'll feel stronger. Because your environment is either feeding your doubts or feeding your beliefs. So I ask you, look around. Who's next to you? What are you absorbing? Who's in your five? Is there at least one person who sees more in you than you see in yourself? And if not, seek them out. Intentionally, relentlessly. Read books by people you respect. Listen to voices that inspire. Go to places where the language spoken is growth. And gradually your inner voice will change. Because it will begin to echo what you hear every day. And the more that voice speaks faith, determination, and action, the less space fear will have. And you know what? That's not just motivation. That's an environment that works for you even when you're tired. The next part is crucial. It's the mirror. 5 questions that will help you see exactly where you are in this system. No judgment, no criticism, just one goal: to switch on your inner light. The light that will never go out unless you turn it off. And now, my friend, the moment has come to turn on the light, not in the room, but inside you. Because only when you meet yourself honestly, without pretense, without defense, that's when the real journey begins. Not a motivational one, but a personal one. Right now, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Simple, but not easy. Each one is like a flashlight. It shines where it's darkest. Answer them for yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 means, "I have no idea how to do this," and 10 means, "I live this every day." Don't pause the video. Don't search for the perfect answer. Just think on the go. Feel the reaction inside, because the first thing that comes up is usually the truth. First question: how honestly do you take responsibility for your life without blaming others? You're the captain. But are you holding the wheel or just drifting with the current? Because even a storm can be endured if you chose this course yourself. Second question: how regularly do you care for your inner world? Not your body, not your Instagram, your thoughts. Is there any silence in your head, or is it filled with others' words and fears? Because weeds grow on their own, but a garden needs daily tending. Third question: when was the last time you did something brave, not because you were ready, but because you couldn't wait any longer? 1 step, 1 call, 1 speech. Even with trembling hands, that's already a win. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to move with it beside you. Fourth question: how clear is your internal self-image? Not how do I look, but who do I believe I am? When you close your eyes, do you see yourself strong, steady, able to stand firm, to say no, to start from scratch? Because that image is your life's instruction manual. Fifth question: does your environment fuel you? Do the people around you believe in you when you're doubting yourself? Or are you surrounded by those who just see things realistically and never go anywhere? A true environment isn't about how many friends you have. It's about how much light they bring into your life. Now take a breath. Don't rush. Rate yourself. See where it's a 3 and where it's a 9. This isn't a ranking. This isn't a test. This is your starting point. And if you want, share in the comments which of these questions hit you the hardest. Not for me, for you. Because once you speak your truth, it's no longer scary. It becomes a guiding light. And you know what? If this video gave you even a sliver of clarity, hit the like button, not for the algorithm. As a signal to yourself, I choose to grow. I won't give up. I'm moving forward. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it, because we're going even deeper. We don't stop at the surface. We dig to the root, to the real you. And that is where true confidence lives. By the way, after watching, come back to these questions. Go through them again, deeper. Write your answers, because thought is foggy, but words are clear, and it's words that shape direction. Your life is not an accident. It's a system, and you've just activated its most important module, awareness. My friend, confidence isn't loud declarations. It's not a posture or a tone of voice. It's inner alignment with yourself. It's a state where you're no longer hiding, where you don't try to convince yourself that everything's fine, but instead you create fine through your daily choices. You heard 7 foundations today, but the power doesn't lie in them. The power lies in one step, the one you take after this video, because even the best system is useless without action, and even the smallest action can restart your entire life. I used to say, if you don't like where you are, you're not a tree. Move. So move, even if it's slowly, even if doubts tag along, because what matters isn't the speed, what matters is the direction. And if this message became a compass for you, come back to it again and again, because confidence isn't an event. It's born in the place where every day you choose to be yourself again. Authentic, steady, unshakable. See you in the next video.